Hey guys, Chris from the Tiger's Den, and as promised this weekend, we know what launch it is, Borderlands 3. We're going to talk about Daemon X Machina, the death of a franchise, and it being shot in the knee by its own creator. So this week was a big week in video games. 9/13/19. Everyone knew what was coming, Borderlands 3. And Daemon X Machina. Now, here's the interesting thing. Daemon X Machina is a game that, after playing it for about 15 hours total now, I can say it has a lot of promise. There are a lot of amazing things about this game, and a lot of things it brings to the genre that maybe weren't represented in previous genre titles, like Armored Core. This game also manages to improve on the original promise that it gave people, because in the original demo, what we were given was something a little lackluster. When they did the second demo and showed us the improvements of the game, those improvements were really like a drop in the bucket compared to the promise of really what all of the gameplay and story mode and, multiplayer actually gave in the end on the finished product. But Daemon X Machina is held back by a couple of things. A lot of the air is going to be sucked out of the room this week because of Borderlands, and next week because of Link's Awakening. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, Chris, Borderlands isn't even available on the Switch. Sure, but most people own multiple consoles or own a PC and a Switch. And a lot of people aren't going to be buying two $60 AAA titles on the same day. So you're going to see a lot of people throw Daemon X Machina by the side as a consumer. But let's talk about it from a YouTuber and reviewer perspective. We know over the years Nintendo's improved their stance with YouTubers. They've started to open up their content creation, and I think that's great. But one area that they've fallen short for whatever reason is twisting the fair use laws here in the United States by having Japanese companies like Marvelous, I'm sure, claim this video. And while that wouldn't be an issue for most people, they'd just ignore the game, it does the game, the fans, the YouTube content creators, and really Nintendo itself a disservice for what could be a game that fills a really awesome niche on the Nintendo Switch that's not being filled on the other systems or the PC, really. Nintendo has allowed Marvelous Japan to essentially shoot themselves in the kneecap with this title. Now, all of that might be forgiven if this title was released, say, June 10th or something random. But the fact that this title's being released on the same day a huge AAA title on every other console is being released that people have been looking forward to for like half a decade, that's just dumb. Now, of course, this is all me telling you Daemon X Machina is a great game held back by a few things. So while it is a great game, let's jump to some pros and cons. So I'm going to start with the cons. I want to end on the pros. I always like to end as positive as possible. Daemon X Machina suffers from some really antiquated systems that we saw during both of the demos, which the menus, to start with, are really terrible. They're unintuitive. Again, there's no real explainer for most of these menus unless you're using the help or watching videos online like I had to understand what is where and what each of them mean without spending your first 6 hours of the game learning menus. Daemon X Machina also suffers from another couple of flaws, which is the UI. Now, the UI here is far better than it was in any kind of Armored Core game, but that's not to say that the UI is good. The UI does allow some customization. You can move icons here or there, but it also is unintuitive. I was playing multiplayer for a short time last night. The person I was playing with did not seem to understand that parts of the UI actually tell you if parts of your arsenal are damaged. It's pretty intuitive if you're just looking to look, but if you're just picking up the game and playing the game and there's no explainer for what all these icons are, because of the fast action-paced combat, that's not necessarily something that I'm paying attention to right away. Now, another flaw that I think Daemon X suffers from is its story. Now, its story does borrow a lot of anime tropes from Mobile Suit Gundam, Evangelion. It borrows a lot of tropes from those games, but none of the tropes here are fully fleshed out as far as I am in the story so far, in the way that they are in those mediums. And part of that's because this is a video game, this isn't a manga, this isn't a, this isn't an anime. So part of that's because this is a video game, but I think they could have done a better job. Another thing that really turned me off at times was the way the game would move back and forth. So before each mission, representatives from some of the mercenary groups will essentially stand around for and be told what the mission is. And they'll, of course, have the choice as to whether or not their camp is going to be picking up that mission. Now, as they're standing around, these are fully 3D, they're in the Daemon X engine, you're standing around and you're talking, and that's fine. But then for whatever reason, the game switches to all text and text boxes. Now, those text boxes are still voiceover, the same way that they were voiceover in the animated portions. So I'm confused as to why there needed to be two separate ways to communicate. I don't know. And that's most of the cons that I have. A lot of the cons I have with this game is it comes down to one word. I think for a lot of people, this game is going to be called forgettable. I don't personally find the game to be forgettable. I actually do find the game to be highly more enjoyable than Astral Chain. But because of all the cons that I mentioned, on top of the marketing strategy, I think this game is going to be forgettable to most consumers, and that's a really big shame. Not just for the genre and the fans, but for Nintendo and what could have been a really interesting niche that they filled here. Now, of course, those are the cons. Let's talk about the positives. So when playing this game multiplayer, it's great. You have a smart player on the other side helping you out, or smart players, and I really like that. When you get into the giant Colossus style battles where you're having to target different weak points and the battles kind of go on this interesting Shadows of the Colossus style program, you love having a smart player on the other end to help you out. Having the AI is functional, but you end up having to carry most of the work. Another benefit, though, with the AI is that when playing solo and doing the free missions, as you play through the story and befriend certain characters, you can actually request their help in the free missions, which is really interesting because you kind of get a feel for what their mechs are, what they do, their arsenals, and you can recruit people based on, like, okay, this character in the story uses a sniper weapon. I'm going to take him because I'm more of a double sword frontline fighter. And I really like that. Another strength is the diversity of weapons in the game. Because while the weapons do fall under the same thing that most games in this genre have, you have your giant handguns, your assault rifles, your machine guns, grenade launchers, sniper rifles, shotguns, lasers, swords. You have all these things, and then your shoulder missiles and whatnot. This game does a really good job of essentially letting you bring your missile launcher, but then 4 weapons into battle. So I could start the battle with my double assault rifles for most of the game, but then on my back have essentially a rocket launcher and a sword. And so at any point during the game, if I felt assault rifle sword or rocket launcher assault rifle or rocket launcher sword, I rarely use that, but if at any point in the game I wanted to switch up to something like that, I can mid-mission, and I really like that. I like having essentially reminds me of having essentially a side deck, and I love that. I love that freedom because it makes me feel like I can build my mech the way I want and be prepared for most situations. Another strength is I thought going into the game that the mission structure and the environments were not going to be as diverse as they were. Now, my expectations were set pretty low, but they were set low by the Armored Core series and its lack of environments. There are more environments here, they are more colorful, and even when they use the same environment because of the, added, I guess, technology since the last Armored Core, there's definitely the spaces used more or differently, and I really like that. And finally, customization is really interesting. You'll get enhancements in this game as you play through the story. Until you get to C rank, you don't really start to see a good diversity in the enhancements. But once you get to C rank, you do start to see more diversity in the enhancements. And it's really interesting because even if you and I are kitted the exact same way with the exact same body structure, the exact same weapons, I might have, all my weapons with stacked magazines, right? You might have all yours with stacked impact. Someone else might be running a lot of their stuff to lower the memory usage for all of their weapons, allowing them to use bigger and better weapons, right? So yeah, I think Daemon X Machina is a really interesting game. Interesting is one of the words I would use to describe it. It's interesting. I wouldn't mark this as a 9 out of 10 or even an 8, but it's definitely just above average. So I would put it at a 7.5 out of 10 if I was giving it a numerical rating. But the thing that really sways me to why this 7.5 makes the game better than every other 7.5 on the Switch is that, again, it's a niche that's not really filled that often. And when it is, we need to be critical, yes, but I think we also need to support the game because then more mech games come. This game bombing in sales because of their ridiculously mental marketing strategy means maybe we don't see another mecha game for a while. There's no Armored Core. There's no new Daemon game coming out. Maybe we don't see one for a while, and that's a real shame. So boo on Marvelous and Nintendo for allowing that to happen. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's blowing up sales. I could be wrong. So that's my opinion. That's my thoughts on Daemon X. I'm going to keep playing the game. Obviously, I'm going to play it to completion. It's a good enough game to warrant playing it all the way through. And the hours here already far surpass Astral Chain in terms of what the game has to offer on the first playthrough. Some people have said that Astral Chain has new game plus. I'm not really interested in new game plus. Okay, that you're just playing the same content with the same character, but it's a harder difficulty. Yawn. What I'm interested in is the growth of this character through a massive campaign, and then being able to play with my friends. Okay, that's what I'm interested in personally. Let me know in the comments section below if you liked us taking a look at Daemon X Machina despite the ridiculous copy strike strategy here. Let us know as well, and please drop a like. We've started picking up a couple of subscribers, so I want to thank you guys. If you liked the video, you want to support our channel, please drop a subscribe there. Every one of you counts. I've been Chris. This is the Tiger's Den. You guys have been great.